We all have habits we wish to leave behind, but it's not that easy, right? We know these things are not good for us, but still, we can't get rid of them. What if I told you there is a way to understand how habits work and use that knowledge to teach your mind to adopt good habits instead of the bad ones? Habits are like crosscuts. They're actions we can do effortlessly and without much thought because we've done them countless times, making them second nature. Think about this. We all brush our teeth every morning to feel fresh and clean thanks to Claude Hopkins, who was one of the most talented advertisers about 100 years ago, convincing people to brush their teeth every day as a routine so his product would be successful. He formed a habit through linking a cue with a reward and a routine that implemented the habit. The benefit or reward that kept people going was the beauty part, like having white teeth with health advantages, such as less gum disease. And they could also see and feel the improvement of brushing away the film on their teeth. There are habits we do without thinking. These habits can be good or bad, like checking the fridge when we're hungry, or biting our nails when we drive or are stressed. There are tons of other things that we do subconsciously, like smiling, snacking, drinking coffee, cleaning, checking social media, and we do these things automatically. So how do we learn these habits? Think about learning to drive or riding a bike. It all looks complicated at first, and we have to think about every little step that we'll make, like put our seatbelt on, turn the key, or press the start button. Don't forget about the clutch, and put it into first gear and accelerate and brake when need to. All these little steps will become habits once we practiced enough. The key is to repeat these actions. These steps happen in the prefrontal cortex area of the brain, which is responsible for complex thoughts. Once you learn how to drive, you don't have to think about every step in detail because you do it automatically and it becomes a habit. And so these actions will be controlled by a different part of the brain, and your prefrontal cortex can think about learning another new thing. So researchers found that there's a simple loop in the brain that controls these habits: a cue, a routine, and the reward. First of all, you have to understand your own habits, and you need to recognize the different part of your habits. Once you've figured out the habit loop of a specific behavior, the key is to find ways to replace old habits with new, healthier routines. Here's an example. Let's say you have a habit of snacking junk food when you feel stressed. To understand this habit, you need to identify its components. The components of the habit loop in this case could be this. The cue is the trigger that prompts your snacking habit. It could be feeling stressed, experiencing boredom, or even seeing a particular advertisement for junk food. The routine is the actual behavior of snacking junk food in response to the cue. It may involve grabbing a bag of chips or cookies and eating them mindlessly. The reward is the positive feeling or relief that you experience after indulging in the unhealthy snack. It provides a temporary sense of comfort or distraction from stress. Now, once you've recognized this habit loop, you can work on replacing the old routine with a new, healthier one. For example, instead of reaching for junk food when you feel stressed, you could establish a new routine of going for a short walk or practicing deep breathing exercises to alleviate stress. By replacing the old habit with a new routine that still addresses the underlying cue and provides a reward, you can gradually train your mind to adopt a healthier habit, but you will have to experiment with rewards. Rewards are really powerful because they make us feel satisfied and fulfilled. However, we often are not aware of the strong desires that influence our behaviors. For example, when Procter & Gamble Company were having trouble coming up with a plan for an advertisement for a new spray that gets rid of smells, the Febreze marketing team discovered that people had a hidden craving for a fresh scent after finishing cleaning. This craving was something nobody knew about before. It was right there in front of them, but they didn't notice it for a long time. Many cravings are like this. They're obvious when we look back, but they're incredibly difficult to see when we're caught up with things. To understand which cravings are behind specific habits, it's helpful to try out different rewards. This might take a few days, a week, or even longer. During this time, you shouldn't feel pressured to make any real changes. Just think of yourself as a scientist gathering data and experimenting. By trying out different rewards, you can figure out what you're really craving for, which is crucial in changing the habit. It can be really challenging to pinpoint the cues that trigger our habits because there's a lot of information bombarding us while our behaviors unfold. For example, think about why you have lunch at a certain time each day. Is it because you're hungry? Or because the clock shows a specific time? Or maybe because your partner had started eating? Or is it simply because food is ready and that's when the lunch habit kicks in? Similarly, when you automatically turn your car right while driving to work, what exactly triggers that behavior? A particular tree? Is it a street sign? The knowledge that this is the correct route? Or perhaps a combination of all those factors? And when you're driving your kid to school and you absentmindedly start taking the route to work instead, what caused that mistake? What was the cue that made the drive to work habit kick in instead of the drive to school pattern? To identify a cue amongst all the noise, we can use a system similar to what psychologists use. We can predefine categories of behavior to examine and look for patterns. Luckily, science provides some assistance in this regard. Studies have revealed that almost all habitual cues fall into one of these 5 categories. Time, the specific time of day or a particular routine. Emotional state, your feelings or mood at the moment. Location, where you are when the habit occurs. Other people, the presence or actions of others around you. By immediately preceding action, the action or event that directly precedes the habit. By considering these categories, we can better understand the cues that trigger our habits. Once you've figured out your habit loop, which means you know what reward makes you do the behavior, what triggers it, and the actual behavior itself, you can begin to make changes. You can switch to a better routine by getting ready for the trigger and choosing a behavior that gives you the reward you want. To do this, you need to have a plan ready. Start writing a plan. Use tools to remind yourself, like an alarm that kicks in when you're usually having these cravings. This plan may not work immediately. There might be days when you're too busy or you just don't feel like it, or it just seems too much of a hassle. But when you force yourself to do the right thing, you'll feel better at the end of the day, and eventually it becomes an automatic action. Changing some habits can be difficult. It may take a week, a month, or a year to become a habit, but this framework gives you a place to begin. Changes can involve trying and failing many times. However, once you understand how a habit works, once you know the trigger, the behavior, and the reward, you become empowered to take control of your life. I hope we've brought some clarity to this challenging subject. We would love to hear from you, so share in the comments below the habits you want to change, and if you've given this method a try. Did it work for you? Also, don't miss out on our captivating video where we reveal 5 simple habits that will transform your mental health. Thanks for watching. See you at the next one.